Today I want to talk about the article, Seven Teachings from Sigmund Freud that we all need to unlearn. I thought it was an interesting article. I'll take a quick take on it and see what do I feel is relevant and what I feel is perhaps not so relevant. As you might know, Sigmund Freud is the father of Psychoanalysis. His first famous book, The Interpretation of Dreams, I think it came out maybe in 1900 or something like that, or 1895. And although there was other guys before him who were getting into this thing of the conscious and unconscious mind, he kind of put together in a very neat way. And his basic theory being that we have a conscious mind and then we repress our thoughts and feelings or desires in an effort to fit in with society. And so as a result of this, we have thought complexes in our what he calls unconscious mind. We would probably today say conscious mind, okay? So let's take a look here at the first thing they're talking about. And let's see what, I'm just going to give you my 2 pence worth of what I think is relevant. He says here, the Oedipus electric complex. This guy, the Oedipus complex is basically that the boy wants to have sex with the mom and the father gets in the way. And the daughter has a kind of a longing for the father. And then this chap talks about attachment complex, or attachment theory might more explain it, okay? Personally, I don't buy into this attachment theory, which is kind of a rather silly theory that, which parent you're attached to and stuff. I do think there's something to the Oedipus complex in the sense that, you see, you got to remember that Freud, coming up with this theory, he had a lot of people coming to him and talking about their sexuality, especially childhood sexuality. For a while, he thought it was all pedophilia. And perhaps he could have blown the lid on pedophilia, because obviously we know it's more common than you realize. But he felt that so many people had pedophilic cases that they couldn't all be suffering from pedophilia, and that maybe there's a fantasy. So I do think that there is something to this idea that of sexuality and family relations. And one of the things is the books that were translated in Freud, where James Strachey was the translator, and maybe it's not such a good translation, because Freud was talking about libido, and basically libido he means is your drive. He's actually talking about drives. They got translated into libido, and libido tends to be seen as sex drive. And yes, sex is important, and sex drive is important, but he was actually talking more about sex and sex drive, more about the love drive, and that the sexual component is an extension of that. So you love your mom and dad, and then there's a sexual component in there somewhere. Do I think that he's right in that women have things like penis envy and men are scared of getting castrated by the father, so they stop loving the mom and find their own gear out to love? I don't think it really works like that. I don't know if many psychoanalysts really believe that to such a degree anymore. I can't say exactly what the situation is, but I wouldn't 100% go with it, and I wouldn't 100% go against. Sexuality is very important because drive is important, desire is important. What drives human beings is desire, and to fix something, finish something, complete something from early childhood. Jacques Lacan, a famous French psychoanalyst, would add a lot to this when he talked about things like the imaginary and the real and the symbolic order. So really, the thing that Freud was talking about in this, fear of the father of castration, and then a willingness to become heterosexual, normative, fit in with society, and get your own wife, would tie in closely with Jacques Lacan's idea of the symbolic order. So Jacques Lacan had this idea that basically we have this imaginary idea of ourselves, which was created through the mirror image, which is basically that we have a distortion of ourselves. Because if you look at the mirror, you always see it in reverse. And that we have a perception of ourselves, and we're trying to get to some ideal, but it's always broken. And according to Lacan, it will always be broken. But he also talks about the real, which is just pure experience, which would basically make us all mad. We can't deal with it. And he also talks about the symbolic order, which is really that the ideas that Freud had, that when you're scared of your dad, that he's going to castrate you, that you're going to be normative to fit in, and this sorts out your sexuality. Lacan would look at it more in the terms of belonging to the symbolic order. What's the symbolic order? The cultural zeitgeist of society, of fitting in and being part of society, is something of the symbolic order and an effort to fit in. And if you take more of a Lacanian viewpoint, you see it more as a symbolic viewpoint. And I think one way we could postulate it is that things like Oedipus complex can be seen symbolically. And in that case, if you see it symbolically, then you have the idea, for example, a mom could be the father figure. Or let's say somebody was an orphan. Did they not have sexuality? Well, society can be this figure. In other words, the symbolic order can be looming over you and the desire to fit in. But that's nothing to do with feeling that you're going to be castrated or whatever. But of course, some psychoanalysts would say that that's what they experience. I don't know. Sexuality is certainly there. Genitalia, the anal stage, a phallic stage, they seem to be a thing. Because also, if you look at the work of Melanie Klein, it ties into this, that we get fixated at certain stages of sexual development. The anal stage is holding on to our shit. In other words, being miserly and obsessive. The oral stage is about biting. The phallic stage is, of course, about screwing around, basically. And that we have to come to some normative stage where we go beyond our impulses. I think there's a bigger picture to take here. We could argue all day about Freud's interpretation, and I don't know if many people would buy into that now, really. But certainly symbolically, there is a need to fit into society. And if we don't, we will have issues because we can't just be instinctive. Because if we're instinctive, you're back to fight and flight. You're back to hitting people and running away from people. And, we can't be animalistic and just raping and hurting people. We have to fit in society. So, interesting point. Penis envy and castration society, again. I think some women do have penis envy. But again, we could look at it instead of penis envy. We could look at it as maybe empowerment envy. Let's see what his idea is here. He says, Freud's idea of penis envy for girls and castration anxiety for boys has been criticized for reinforcing gender stereotypes. Okay, let's take a look here. He says, but most of Freud's theories lack empirical support. That's true. Okay. I think if we, again, look back at this concept of symbolic order, that like girls having a penis envy is more like that they would have an envy of the empowerment of men. So you can look at that more on a symbolic level, that yes, some women do envy that a man's penis, but we could say that some women envy the man's power in a patriarchal society. I think that will be just equally as viable explanation. Hope you like this video. Please like and subscribe if you do, and I'll talk to you next time.